All right, let's get into it because we've got dogs going crazy, but it's all right because our dog Honey and Mum's dog Zena, they love playing. You can hear them playing tug of war. I've got my mum here on the podcast, Mylinda Johnson. Welcome to the Booty by Jack's podcast. I was like, Mum, act natural. She's like this. Anyway.
What am I supposed to say? Welcome.
Yeah, I know, but it's good to be here. Well, you're already here. So we put in a question box on Instagram and you sent in a heap of questions for Mum. And I was pretty surprised as well. I thought there'd be a few, but there's like a heap of questions. But before we get there, kind of go over like the relationship Mum and I have is just taking the piss all the time, like having fun. So like us trying to be serious, well, not even trying to be serious, but us being recorded is like quite funny, but Mum will smooth out. But the first thing I want to say is like our relationship is more like friends when we're together. It's not as much like you mothering me all the time.
No,
obviously, if I'm sick,
that's long gone.
Yeah. Like if I'm sick or whatever, I go to Mum and I need some medicine or you know what I mean. Of course, but like we're taking the piss, we're having fun. It's really good. But in saying that, the reason why a lot of people like my no bullshit kind of attitude on my videos and my knowledge around nutrition and whatnot is most of the stuff that I've learned is actually from Mum. So she's a world of knowledge. So this is going to be a mix of like asking how I was as a kid, what it's like growing up, you know, as a single parent, single mum or whatever, going through having to work all these different types of jobs. And then Mum's also got the experience that she's competed in fitness competitions. She's been a fitness instructor, ran classes, while also having 2 kids. So I think it's really interesting. It's very relatable from a lot of our followers, and that's what the questions were. There's a lot of questions. Other than that, what's kind of like, where are you at right now? Like you're not fully into the gym. You're not
Nope.
and how old are you?
I'm 59, I think now.
Like
in
I always,
4 weeks, I
you were
think.
born in 19.
I always forget.
Yeah. Oh, your birthday's soon too.
Yeah.
I was talking about this yesterday.
So I only go to the gym 1 to 2 days a week. I do Zumba 1 morning a week. Do heavy weights when I do the gym. Walk the dog a lot. Still active on the property with gardening and all that kind of stuff because that's what we do, us ADDs.
Yeah.
We don't stop very much at all. But so yeah, that's mainly what I do. And I'm not fanatical with my food anymore. I eat whatever I like.
Yeah.
If I want to sit down and have a big feed and have cake afterwards, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I've gone past all that now.
And just a bit of a backstory, like Mum worked her ass off to be able to buy not just a little block of land, a decent sized block of land just outside of Gympie in Queensland, which if you're from America, you can Google Maps it. Basically, it's quite rural. And then she built a affordable, small, like 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom home on there back in the day when I was like maybe 12 or something.
You were younger than that.
Even younger?
You and Shmela, so you were 7 and Shmela was 8.
And I remember
we had the 8.5 acres.
There we go. And I remember just like I remember from a very young age that you were like, I want to make sacrifices to let you guys grow up on more of a farm, like
and a home.
In a home. Yeah, like but like a kind of like more natural style.
Well, I always wanted to dig in the dirt and grow food and have that space for you guys to run around. Well, you used to run down the dam and get yabbies and
naked.
Naked, do all those kinds of things. Come back with scratches and bumps and bruises and all the rest of it from playing down the creek.
Yeah, and I think when I was like 12, 13, all I wanted to do was go into town. And skateboard and hang out with mates.
Not going down the back paddock.
Yeah.
I'm not going down there.
I was like, because I had the farm life, and you're making me move the pig what do you call the pig cage thing?
We used to have a little that was Thelma and Louise actually. Yeah. And I made a movable cage so that they actually dug up the land and worked the land at the same time as having the piggies.
Anyway, and as much as I wanted to be in town and like skateboard and get subbed with my mates or whatever, I realized very quickly that I had it pretty, even though it wasn't rich farm, like everyone who has farms now are usually more wealthy, but we were not wealthy at all. But what we had was a wealth of like fresh air, privacy. You could grow your own
Good
fruits and
food.
good food,
You've
rain,
always had good
good
food.
food, rainwater, like all the things that I value now and I didn't value then. So I think it's really interesting. And I've looked back so many times and I've told this to you multiple times, but like, not really apologize, but I've been like, I really value how strict mum was in certain things. Like she wouldn't let my sister and I eat like roll ups at school or cereal in the
There was
morning
a
and stuff.
reason for that. It only took one red frog
Yeah.
on the way from school, heading home. I was like, oh, you've been really good in the back of the car. You can hear, oh, Mayla, Jackson, just conversation, normal kid conversation. Stopped, got fuel, got one red frog each. And
We're
all
fighting.
hell broke out.
Yeah.
We're talking the red food colorings and the sugar hit all at once. And I had to slam on the brakes of the car.
Yeah.
You two were killing each other
Just
in the
a
back. And
bunch
we're
of
screaming hysterically and kicking the shit.
So my sister Shamela is only like a year and a few
13
months.
months.
Yeah,
13 months
a year and
difference.
1 month older than me, and we were like really like just always together and always fighting and just what brother and sisters or
And
close siblings
playing.
do.
Is we're
Yeah,
really,
yeah,
really close growing up. Really
exactly.
close.
The reason why you end up having fights is because you're really close. You
That's
know
it.
what I mean? We weren't like the 4 or 5 year age gap where I wasn't really hanging out with her much because she was like heaps older and doing her own thing. Like we were just even our friends at school were the same friends nearly. But by the time I got to high school, we weren't really fighting or whatever. It was like looking after each other. But yeah, as like, you know, 8 to 10, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, it's just crazy fights in the back of the
Oh, yeah.
car. Oh, you ate this, you did that. And even when I was a little,
Get
like,
out of my room, Jackson.
yeah, even when I was like a little, before I could even
Constantly.
speak properly, my sister Shamela would get me to do like the naughty things. Like, hey, go grab that, go to grab the cookies or like
Constantly.
open that up or go where you're not meant to go.
Yous
And
always egged each other on, though.
yeah, yeah.
Always egged each other on.
And I don't have like full vivid memories from it, but all I know is even before you got the farm, and then mum's still at this farm that we're talking about earlier, and that's what's really cool. And she's made it so amazing, like full greenhouse and gardens and like fruits and veggies, and like we're about to do a dinner later tonight, and she's got her own herbs and stuff from the garden. It's something that people only just started valuing the last like 5, 6 years. And before that, people were like buying apartments in the city or being close to town. And now everyone who's like wealthy are trying to get land and create a farm. And it's like,
It's a really healthy environment. I always keep saying, like, yes, I'm going to move off the big land, but I don't want to go in a box
yeah,
because
yeah,
what do you do all day? Like when it comes down to it, like I get up in the morning, I go out in the yard with the dog because she needs to get out in the yard by the time she gets up in the morning. Garden needs watering, weeding, you're moving.
mm,
But if you just got a little tiny box or a unit in, I would go crazy. What do you do?
I,
Like, well, then you've got to go for walks,
then
get
you go,
dressed, so to speak, to
yeah,
go for walks around the block or, around the street.
yeah. But people that are
I,
older probably
I,
don't really
and
want to do that
and
anyway.
it's just my brain, the way I function. I need to have a reason to move.
Yeah,
So not like just to walk around the block because I'm going for a walk,
yeah.
but to
You got
get
a
up and go
farm.
out in the
Yeah,
garden. I'm making a purpose. I'm growing my broccoli and the cauliflower, and I can and water it and weed it, get the sunlight, and have all of that in one. Plus, be healthy. Well, reasonably healthy anyway.
and it's funny, like I never ever thought I'd say this, but it's just recent that I've been like, fuck, I feel like I'm getting old because I wouldn't mind buying a block of land one day and having my own space. And then you asked me this literally only 5 years ago, or when I was 18, I was like, I don't want to ever be at the farm at mum's place. Like I want to be in town. I want to be in like right next to the ocean. And I still value, obviously I surf. I still value being near the ocean and I still value these things, but every year I'm like privacy, block of land. I can have my own big garage gym and like all these things. Luckily, I'm figuring out a way. Like we've got a spot here. Like we've just built a sauna and stuff where I've got a mini version of my own little oasis, and we've got the
You
bush
got
at
the
the
bush at
back.
the back of the
We got
fence.
we got very lucky here, which is pretty rare. Um, but on that note, I want to whip into the questions because
Yep.
I think the questions are actually going to bring us back to different times.
Yep.
So I don't want to
Let's do
just
it.
go into it. So let's get into the questions. Okay. Her experience being a single mum to a boy, does it ever get easy?
It fluctuates. It definitely go through stages. So, and especially with an ADD boy. So that there's the thing, like with ADD is definitely a different kind of pressure. But children, you'll always go through fluctuations. There's always these times where everything goes along really good for a little while, and then like when you hit your teens, then there was the girl stuff, and I went through all those stages where then the hormones are raging and there's anger and they want to own life, and then I had to go to the police station because you've been in trouble.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but then it went through another stage where you settle down for a little while again, and and then you learnt through those lessons through the police and
Yeah, yeah.
hanging around with
I
the
think
wrong
it's
kids.
the right age to go through it.
So to answer that question, you will always go through fluctuations, and even to, like I say to people, even till your children hit anywhere from around 18, 19, you are still going to go through
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
Like especially when they go through for their first relationships and they go through a breakup.
Mm.
That's hard times emotionally that you're there for your children still too.
Yeah, yeah.
So all I can say is you will go through it, like life in general for all of us. And you just sometimes you don't see the end of the line with your children
Yeah,
because you
yeah.
go every day in, day out, I'm tired, I can't take it
Yeah, yeah. You
anymore.
get to a point where you feel like you can't handle
Yeah.
anymore, and then you realize it just makes you stronger.
And then there comes the times when you walk into their bedroom and they're in their bed and you look at them sleeping, and that's when you go, oh my God, peace at last. But then you go, that's where your heart explodes with your
Mm.
children, that you love them no matter what.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the hard times, look, I've been the screaming mum, I've been the angry mum. It wasn't all love and what do they say? Love, peace, and brown rice, or whatever
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
It's never, and life
Like the
isn't that
movies. It's not like
anyway.
the movies.
No,
It's not
and
like.
life is like that. So it's just a matter of seeing yourself through those times when you do get tired.
Yeah. Um, it kind of reminds me that would fit into this question is like there was definitely a time where you were a little bit like upset because my first love, my first girlfriend, I went all in and I just didn't come home for like weeks or whatever. And I'd come home and I wouldn't be very like present because I was so obsessed with this girl. I was 13 or 14 years old.
Typical teenager. And this is what they say, they ignite a little part of their own hormones in their own brain. And this is where girls will start fighting with their mum
Mm,
and boys will start fighting with their fathers, because the hormones, the boy is starting to become like
a man.
a
Yeah, yeah.
man and turn into a man, and the girl is starting to turn into a woman. So there's going to be where you get your own mind and your own independence
Yeah.
and go, well, I don't want to do what I'm told.
Best pre and post workout food and timing.
I don't believe in pre-workout.
Yeah.
I think good food in general. Our body, like a certain amount of
No, no,
carbohydrates
no,
and
not
protein.
like supplements. Best food to eat before and after workout. People call that pre and post.
Oh, okay. So when it comes down to it, if you're going to have carbohydrates, it's like whole grains and things like that.
Mm,
Make sure that you've got all that fiber in your diet, because that's crucial.
mm.
A lot of people miss that out when we talk about prebiotics and probiotics. Um, so your grains and things like that, and fiber. Oh, they
We got the
got
fucking
cranky.
ice cream truck going by. Put the dogs out of here. We got the ice cream truck going by. We got the
They're
dogs
amped up.
literally. How can people
Okay.
focus?
Um,
Put the dogs out. I don't care if they whinge.
so a lot of people miss out on the importance of fiber. So now we're going into a big protein loading, everyone's doing protein. They're missing out on crucial fiber. So fiber is the key to building up good bacterias in the gut. And, there's a lot more
So
behind
what
it.
would be
But
instead? Because a lot of people are like, a lot of our viewers aren't really like very educated on like science and fiber and all. Even they even just they're trying to figure out what a protein and a carb is. So instead, you could give an example of like what you would eat like a few hours before a workout and what you
okay.
would eat after you work out.
So a few hours before a workout, I don't think there's anything wrong with a piece of whole grain sourdough or whole grain toast, real butter.
Mm,
So you've got your real fats in there because they're crucial for hormones, etc., etc. And then scrambled eggs or eggs on toast or poached eggs or boiled eggs.
yeah,
It Eggs are a perfect amino, and
yeah,
I just think they're so easily assimilated in the body.
yeah,
So and same after workout, some just meat and salad. You got all your different coloured foods in there. You're getting a nice balance of your fibre and your carbohydrates. Nothing goes past real food.
yeah, yeah. I think
There's just
people are trying
nothing.
to. I think the people who would need like a heap of caffeine or a heap of pre-workout like supplements are people that aren't eating the right food.
And not sleeping properly.
And yeah, this is just
So that's all the big factors. If
mm,
you've had a good night's sleep and you just eat,
real
good
food.
food, you shouldn't need a pre-workout. There's nothing wrong with having a cup of coffee and a
No,
cup of
no, I don't
green
mean that.
tea, and that gives you a natural amount of caffeine anyway, and
Yeah.
that's healthy still.
I
There's
think
nothing wrong with that.
people are like on their third or fourth coffee, or they're taking like 4 scoops, double scoops pre-workout, and then they're using that, and then they're
And
just
then
like,
they crash.
yeah, yeah.
And then you're going to go through that personality. Like everybody knows now. There's videos, funny
People get
videos
angry and
made
shit. Yeah.
of people on pre-workouts and that crash. And you're going to, then you just got to keep going for the high like they do with sugars and things like
Mm.
that. So yeah, I think just a normal cup of coffee for the average, well, people like us, we have a normal cup of coffee and we're living
Yeah, yeah.
on
We're lit.
adrenaline for the
Yeah, yeah,
next
yeah,
7 or 8 hours. So, but the average person, if they have a cup of coffee or green tea, that should be enough with a normal
yeah,
food,
yeah.
like good food, nutrients
I
still if
think
they need
I
it.
think the coffee and that is so obvious that people and sometimes it's responsibility of like parents. Like parents are drinking coffees in front of their kids and then don't expect, and then the kids are like, why can't we go and have Red
Monkey
Bull
see,
and
monkey
stuff?
do. If they
So
see a parent do it, they want to do it
mm.
too.
And that's why when I was growing up, you know, with you as as your son, or like seeing you, you weren't having bad like a heap of bad, like you were eating eggs with us.
Yep.
You weren't having your meal and then giving us our meal or
No.
whatever. Like we were just eating whole foods, and then we'd go down to the seafood place, like and have like deep fried prawns and fish, whatever, because that was like a treat. So you
Yeah,
would
once a week we'd always have like fish and chips with, garlic prawns and some scallops and
so we'd like ball out, spend a
proper
bit.
proper scallops, though.
Yeah,
Sea
yeah, real
scallops,
real
not
scallops.
potato scallops, like proper and chips.
At like the age of like 9, I was like, I'd like a garlic prawns, deep fried, I'd like sea scallops. So this kid like we'd ball out for that. We'd spend money on that. This is another good question. Nutrition advice to help during hormonal times of the month. So this obviously means like around when you have your period.
Okay. So nutrition wise, if we're talking nutrients, magnesium and B6 is a key for keeping you more stable through that hormonal peak when you start getting really antsy, or what they call PMT, premenstrual stress or
Yeah,
premenstrual mood swings.
yeah.
Magnesium is the key for that, and B6. B6 is not like necessarily an energy B. It's a more calming the nervous system,
Mm,
gets in the nervous system like magnesium and calms. I always say to people, like in clinic, I go, magnesium and B6 is going to be your plateau of
mm.
keeping you calmer.
So that's like I think throughout this podcast, you'll hear us talking a little bit how like we're not a big fan of like your traditional bodybuilding supplements where you're just like smashing weight gainer protein or like pre-workouts and stuff like that. But we are a big fan, you being the herbalist, naturopath kind of background, that you're a big fan of like supplementing with the right multivitamins and vitamins and minerals, especially if you get a high quality, because you get practitioner
Yep.
stuff. So it's
And
much
makes a difference.
much higher quality than just going up to like Chemist Warehouse and stuff. But obviously, whatever people have access to, just make sure you look up Like I really, if you're in Australia, I think it's even America too. Like iHerb's really good, iHerb.com, because it has like really high quality supplements on there as well.
No, not necessarily. See, iHerb is one of the cheaper online,
Because they've got
American.
Thorn.
It's an American
Yeah,
company.
yeah,
So when it comes down to it, of course, like anything, if it's going to be cheap, it's going to have a lot of fillers and it's going to be the poorer quality. I get
yeah,
people, they bring in their jars from Chemist Warehouse or iHerb, and they're saying, "Oh, my magnesium doesn't work." So they come in with their bag of stuff, and I go
mm,
through it, and I go, "Well, your magnesium is only a poor quality. It's a citrate. It's not as absorbable as
yeah,
magnesium chelate, and now they've got like a biglycinate now. It's even more advanced, and like technology is, and then of course the pricing goes up with that.
yeah, yeah,
So, but then there's times I say to people, like if that's all they can afford, get something. If they're really lacking in magnesium, they're still going to absorb some of that over time of taking it.
yeah.
So it's affordability for people as well,
Mm.
what they can get hands on and what have you.
What about for females that want some advice on like general advice without having a supplement? Like, maybe, so for when you got your period or at that time of the month, what are some things that are going to help? And should you be focused on a little bit more rest or recovery, or should you be lowering, like, because you're going to be like a lot of girls crave certain like
And
chocolate sugars and stuff.
that's right, because the body is going through such a huge, um, whatever wording is it, I don't know about putting this on video, but anyway, like to sheath away what they've got to release to go through that cycle takes a lot of energy. So
Mm.
you're tired. So as soon as anyone's tired, they're going to go for the sugar.
Yeah, yeah.
I did it all the
Because you're
time.
feeling more lazy or
But
like,
there's a new bit of research coming out. I won't go too in depth in it, but there's a little bit of new research coming out that the carbohydrates actually might actually help trigger that response in the
mm,
body a little bit more. Still early days with that I think. But the most important when a female's going through her cycle to have, and I know the vegetarian people aren't going to like this, but no matter what, I've been in clinic for now 25 years. And I've seen the keto and all kinds of things, paleo, and now we're going to the vegan. And I understand a lot of reasons why people do that and why they want to go vegan as non-cruelty to animals, and I understand. But I still stay in practice that if the world, I always say, if the world goes to shit and where we started from in the beginning, we were hunters and
yeah,
gatherers.
yeah.
Now, I had to do a talk not so long ago with a group of women, and I was only to step in to do a talk on nutrition and things like that. And I said, there was a couple in there that were vegan or vegetarian, and I still respect people that make that decision for
Mm.
themselves. And like I said, I understand why. But when it comes down to it, if we were out foraging and hunting and gathering, back to that, I said to these ladies, you would fall away because you're not going to find a whole paddock with enough
So you're not
seeds
going to
and
buy
grain.
soybeans.
No, you're not going to
You're not
find
going to buy
it. And if
soybeans. Yeah.
people don't realize, and so what they said is, oh, well, what could you have that's not harmful and what have you? And I said, well, eggs. And women, believe it or not, women, if we were to like forage over here and the men went to hunt, we would find eggs.
Yeah, yeah.
So in actual fact, hunter and gatherer, and I always say, so women, getting back to the question, so women that are going through a cycle, it's really important that they have enough iron.
Mm.
So red meat,
Red meat.
you
Yeah,
cannot, I have so many women that are vegan that have to have an iron supplement
yeah,
that
yeah.
they buy every 6 weeks or 4 weeks because they cannot uptake enough
Yeah,
out. They're
you'd
not
have to
getting it
you'd
in
have
their
to eat
diet.
like half a kilo of spinach to get the same iron, which is not even just digestible. Like imagine like a bowl this big of spinach or
And when
whatever.
it comes down to it, and this is what I always educate, and this is important for the women out there, if they're going to have their red meat, it's really important through that cycle, but have vitamin C foods with that red meat
Mm.
because vitamin C helps you to absorb that iron. You cannot absorb iron without vitamin C. So for the people that are vegan, that gets a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, that's when supplements go into.
Yeah,
Or there's a lot of people
and there's
that.
nothing wrong with that, but see, this is where I tend to say, and I shouldn't make it about this, but we talk about people being vegan, but if you're going to buy a supplement, well, the
There's damage on the
processing, the
planet
amount
as
of
well. Yeah.
energy and processing for that, and where you're getting it from, is that sustainable?
Fun
So,
fact, I listened to an awesome podcast about 7 or 8 months ago, and it had a guy who was a farmer, but he was like what was called something about like agricultural recycled farmer, where like he has like a farm that would, if his farm was all over the world, it wouldn't destroy the world. He leaves the ground for
yeah,
long enough. It's like a fancy word for it. Anyway, he was doing a sit down podcast with like kind of like vegans that were like really irrational and a bit full on, and they were trying to get their point across. And he explained that someone eating a vegan something or other, like it has soybean in it or whatever, you're actually killing more animals, but they're just smaller animals like insects and rabbits and stuff. So even though you're not killing one large cow, he said, do you not value insects? Do you
and
not value? Because so what basically what I mean by this is vegans are actually killing a lot of animals as well, but it's just not direct killing, so they don't
no.
feel. So I think you shouldn't always lean on trying to be vegan because you're trying to make less deaths, because you're actually getting a lot more smaller animals or insect deaths.
Well, agriculture in general, you
Yeah.
still got to plough up the ground to put all those, like, well, we're sort of more leaning on soya, which is a lot of
Mm.
it you need, and corn, and you need the beans
Yeah,
and
yeah.
things like that. When it comes down to it, the agriculture
The pesticides.
that
Yeah,
they have
yeah.
to do and the huge amounts of land they have
Yeah.
to dig up and spray all these poisons on, well,
You're killing way more animals. Yeah.
so yeah, I didn't want to make it about that, but I will always, no matter what, I don't care if I die, and we still stay with shops and things like that. Like, we've gone through floods in Gympie and people are fighting over, of all things, a loaf of white bread
And you're like, I
and
don't want
milk. And I
bread.
go, I might think about that for a dozen eggs.
Yeah, yeah.
But not for, but I will always stand by hunter and gatherer. That's what we were meant to
Yeah.
do. We're meant to move our bodies. We're meant to eat real food. And part of it is still having meat by my way of feeling
Yeah,
and
it's
thinking.
sure it's what we
So
like
we
to do.
each have individual,
Mm.
feelings and thoughts, and the way we do things. I will always stand by that.
Yeah. Next one. Any tips on how to encourage your loved ones to start living healthier? There's people in relationships or have people like family members where they aren't motivated to get healthy or fit. Like how did you instill that in us as children? But also how would someone in a relationship encourage their
Well,
partner?
number one, I didn't have to in with you guys because I used to eat that way. So what you grew up with is seeing me eat that
Monkey
way,
see, monkey
and
do.
you
Yeah.
automatically wanted to eat that way. Even though when you were really young, Shmela went through a stage and she didn't want to eat meat, so you would swap behind my back.
The veggies and the meat.
You'd be doing a barter between you. I'll give you my bit of broccoli, and you give me your bit of steak or your bone or something.
I got a good
But
deal.
so when it comes down to it, the other thing I just say, and I can be probably still, after 15 years of having strange conversations with clients and then they would come back and not listen,
Mm.
I'm now pretty straightforward, and that is, you're going to die.
Yeah, yeah.
And I say it
I
this
love it.
way,
Yeah, yeah. No, you got to be the honest
and
truth.
I
Like,
know that. If you're going to get obese, what are you going to do? Like, if you're obese at 30, you're going to be stuck in a chair for the next 30 years because you'll only live probably till about 70, because you're going to die of obesity, heart
people,
attack,
diabetes.
diabetes,
Yeah,
complications of diabetes, etc., etc. And people go, oh, they take a medication. Medication is, you're still going to
yeah,
die
yeah.
early.
Just slowing it down.
So when it comes down to, I'm pretty factual in clinic now, and in general, I've lost patience more than likely and a little bit of compassion. And I just tend to say, what do you want to do? You want to get wheeled up to a window and sat in a chair for the next 20 years of your life, of quality of life, of not moving
Mm.
around and not being able, because your feet are all swollen and your joints are all done. And basically, and then mentally, like brain wise, I say, your brain either goes and your body still wants to move around, and then how frustrating if you ever watched anyone go through, early dementia,
Yeah, yeah,
how cruel that is on a family. And we now know that has everything to do with diet as well.
yeah,
So
yeah,
those good fats are crucial in that good diet. So there's no easy way around it. You can pussyfoot around it if you
yeah,
want to,
yeah.
but people don't listen to that. The cold hard
What
facts are
the
you're going to have a poor quality of life.
I love that answer, and I'm like that too. But, and I think people will listen to this. If you're in a relationship, do you say that to your partner?
Yeah,
You just say it like that,
yeah.
and they just go the opposite way. They push back. You
Well,
just got to
no,
be
but
honest too.
look, and you can do it in nicer ways. And this is once again by you eating and you
Yeah, yeah,
being, and then they see that you've got the energy and that you're laughing and you're happy. Because while someone else is eating poorly, their mood goes down
yeah.
and they become unstable. And this is where brain comes into it.
Mm.
We can all see people coming off sugar and they're moody, tired, angry, their feet hurt, their joints start
Yeah.
hurting, everything starts hurting more. So,
We have so many female clients that, are in late 20s, 30s or whatnot, that reach out and say, first of all, they just want to like do like a health and fitness transformation. But then when I get to know them a bit more and they do their check-ins and stuff, they'll actually start talking about, some of them will say it straight away, but they'll start talking about how I'm not having sex with my husband or my partner anymore. I feel distance. I don't feel the spark. There isn't that love there anymore, but we're just like living together and we're just paying bills and whatnot. And they're looking at either getting healthy first. I think it's a really good way of doing it. But a lot of them check in after 8 to 12 weeks and say, now that I've started looking good and feeling better about myself, my partner has asked, hey, I'd like to do something healthy. I want to join a gym with you. And like, they either, it can go two different ways. Your partner either goes with you, grows with you, or you grow apart and you have to break up. And that's just, you'd rather make that decision then than wait another 20 years. And someone has to step up first and say, we aren't being healthy. And a lot of time people in relationships will gain weight together, out of just like, this person will always love me, but it shouldn't be like that. It should be like, how can we love each other for longer? So can we still, because you hear those amazing stories on like people interviewing old people on the street, and they're in their 80s and they grew up in the hard times and they've worked on farms or they've just been hard workers and they're quite healthy.
and see, back that up, exactly what
Yeah.
you just said. I was just talking to some of the girls from Zumba the other morning about that, and saying about how their grandmother and their health, their quality of health was a lot better
Yeah.
because they didn't go to the shops and have aisles
Mm.
of packet food. So when it comes down to it, they would do things together. And too, so when it comes
And
down to
movement and
it,
exercise too. Like they were
she
working, they had to
needed
work
hubby
hard.
to dig the soil to her to have the veggie
Yeah,
garden
yeah.
and all those kind of, so they grew a relationship in a different kind of
Yeah.
way. And now, well, we've got everything like, say, like you're
Easy,
living in an
packaged.
apartment, they don't even have kitchens in some of
Yeah,
these
yeah.
places. So you're not cooking together. The old Italian movies that you used to see where she'd go, oh, get out of the
Yeah,
kitchen, you're
yeah.
driving me crazy.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
he
yeah.
would go, oh, but I love her,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
she would love him. So, like everything, I think our quality of life is changing so much, but now we've got to make effort to be able to do those things together. So, do your healthy food together, exercise together every now and again. Doesn't have to be all the time. You don't have to be in each other's pockets all the
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
but to enjoy, do things, enjoy together, go off and play a game of golf together or tennis or whatever it is, or do something fun and loving
And I think it's
together.
less.
Laughter changes everything.
Yeah, I love that. It's so true because when you fell in love, you were probably laughing and having fun together, and they were both sexually and mentally attracted to like the hard work the male had and the pursuit the female had and like the chase and everything. You need to try and reignite that throughout. And you hear people in their 60s and 70s and 80s that still have that, and you think, oh, that'd be nice. It's like, no, it takes work. It's not
It's
easy.
like everything, like I get off track on my diet, then I go, oh shit, pull myself up. On average, it's like you have a calibration point
Mm.
where you go, hang on a sec, I've got too far off. bang, I start eating, and putting that extra effort. It's the same in a relationship. You make that extra effort.
Yeah.
It's about bringing it back to a calibration point, going,
Yeah.
hey, where were we, like 5 years ago, and what were we
Yeah.
doing that was so great together? You know, were we going out and doing, going to the movies, or we were doing something together where we were laughing
What
that
was your
little
body
bit more?
shape like when you fell in love? And I know that sounds like shallow, and obviously people change as they get older, but there's so many people that I meet and train that get in their best shape in their 40s and 50s and look amazing. And like, yeah, you get wrinkles because you laugh and you have a good time. There's nothing wrong with that. But I mean, like, if you're like obese, overweight, and can barely move and you get tired from walking up a hill, how can you want to feel like to be loved and you don't love yourself? And
We
how can
don't
you?
feel like for a female, you just don't feel sexy.
Yeah. And if you
So when
don't
you
feel
don't
sexy,
feel sexy,
mm,
and then this is where calibration points, like getting around in your slippers and stuff at home, and then you get dressed to go to work, and then you come home, you get in your comfy clothes. Well, maybe once a week, you get dressed up for your man when he comes home,
yeah.
and same with the guy too.
Yeah,
It
same.
doesn't
Yeah,
go
I
just
agree.
one
I
way.
agree.
It's that putting that spark back
Mm.
into things again. It's like putting a spark back into your diet, putting your spark back into your life for yourself individually.
Mm.
That makes you feel strong and independent within yourself. And then putting that spark into your relationship, making that little tiny bit of effort makes a difference. When you first meet in a
You
relationship,
put maximum effort in.
that's right.
Yeah.
So that fades away. So I think it's really good to always have like a calibration point where you go, hang on, where are we for what we
It's like a
were?
check in
Like,
with yourself or a check in your
yeah,
relationship.
yeah.
Um, how did she connect with you as a growing teenage boy?
Sorry, I just had a memory of you standing over the top of me and going, right, ma'am, boy, bring it on. And I'm like, I stood there and laughed at you. Remember in the kitchen? I was like,
I
what
think that's
the
that's pretty
effing
that's pretty
fucking was
rare. I'd
that
say probably
shit?
like
That was
yeah,
once.
yeah,
That was
because
once. You'd just broken up in that really
yeah,
major
yeah, I was probably hurt
relationship.
and I thought I was the man,
Your first love, and you come home and you were doing the stand. That was the only.
Yeah.
But apart from that, like with teenagers, I think it's about being real. I was always like, my friends were always saying, oh, you shouldn't be saying that to your kids and what have you. And with me, and maybe that's part of me being on the spectrum with the ADD, there was never any cover ups. Like,
I don't think
if
that's to do with that. I think it's such your
if I was in a
personality.
relationship, we had a fight, we had a full blown fight in front of you.
Yeah.
I didn't believe about doing things behind closed doors.
Mm.
And so, same with you guys. I always said, I still have to be your mum, but I still liked being your friend as well.
Yeah.
Come to me like, no matter what stage you and Shamala went through with anything, and that is, yes, the drug era and
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
and the
of
alcohol
course.
and sneaking alcohol and whatever else, by being that open, you were always able to come to me. And I always say this to parents: if you keep secrets behind closed doors and kids don't know things that are going on, your children are meant to trust you more than
Mm.
anybody in the world.
And they will find out about stuff.
If you're the one that's lying to them, I always say,
Mm.
who do they trust?
Yeah, yeah.
So I always say, I always pull things back to real, and that is, be real, be honest. Be honest when you're having bad days, be honest, and they will then be honest with you and come
Mm.
to you with things. And it builds a really strong bond of trust.
I liked that you would say to me, like, as much as parents don't think this, obviously it's even worse these days. Kids are going and getting alcohol at like 12, 13 years old,
Yeah,
13, 14 definitely, and they're trying it because their parents are drinking here and there, or they said as soon as you tell a kid they can't have something, they want it.
of course.
And
And
that's
it's been happening since the dawn of
yeah,
time.
and it's always been like that. And kids drink a lot, vomit, whatever. But you would say to me eventually, like, once you realized I was drinking here and there with friends, you're like, I'm okay with it. Just tell me where you're going to be. And if you ever
Yep.
need me, please call me and let me know that you're staying at someone's house and where you're going to be. So then if you need help, if you're sick or dying or whatever, I can actually help.
And
Because there's
that's the other
nothing,
thing about being honest. You
yeah,
were taught this is what can happen. You
mm,
can, choke on your own vomit or whatever it is, you can
yeah,
die.
yeah,
Like a lot of parents tries so much to protect their children by not telling them the truth, but then they don't know what real reality is then.
Yeah.
And real reality is that's what can happen. There is the dangers,
Young
there's the
kids are,
great fun side, and that's all kids think of at the time. But real bad things can go wrong. So I was always really real.
yeah, yeah. I think that's really important.
Very real.
This is just, it's not a question, it's a statement. She looks like a bombshell, can pass as your younger sister. I
No way.
think
No. Nah.
that was funny as.
Sorry.
Um, You look good. You look good for your age. I think that's what they're saying. Like a lot of people think that like, and I get this all the time. People are like, "Oh, once you're 40, people just think you're fucking done. You're old. It's all downhill." It's like, well, no, because your mind can get more beautiful, but also you can really dial in what works for you, what makes you happy. And there's nothing more amazing than having a good conversation with someone who's older because they're always usually they're happy and smiling and they're like, I don't, what was it? Someone said this that lady on that documentary about people that are living to 100. She was like, I don't take things too serious.
And that's the crucial part about that living to 100 is laughter,
Yeah.
that family connection, community, good food, and moving the body. So when
Mm,
they did that, it was, and this is what people always think there's a one bullet thing's going to fix
mm.
everything, like I'll get that
This
nutrient
anti-aging
and that's,
thing.
yeah, and anti aging creams and this and that. But they did that, the blue zones. He did that blue zones. I think it was 30 years ago. They've just went back into those
Yeah.
areas of those blue zones as soon as McDonald's and Taco Bell and all those kinds of things came in the areas, and you can see where those moved in.
It reduced the blue
It
zones.
reduced the
Yeah.
blue zones,
Mm.
but where the blue zones are, they move, they laugh, they eat good.
And lots of
So
social friendships with people in their 80s and 90s. They're all sitting there hanging out. And the old guy's drinking alcohol every day, but he
yeah.
walks like 5, 6 Ks up hills to see everyone.
But when he drinks his alcohol too,
He's
it's
social.
not he's having a half a carton of beer every day or
No,
six
no.
of them. He'll have like maybe one or two, whether it be grappa or scotch or
Yeah,
AB
good
or a
quality stuff.
wine or
Yeah.
whatever it might be. It's the quantity is not so much.
Mm.
They're not binging, they're
Yeah.
not doing things in extreme or crazy, up and down, like
Not
one
drinking,
fix is gonna fix
not
things.
drinking stuff full of sugar, soda and sugar and shit in
Well,
it all the
that's the other
time.
thing too, yeah. So yeah, I think the age thing comes down to, and I just wanted to sort of say what you're saying. What ends up happening when we go through our, from our teens to, I think, that can fluctuate from different people from teens to 25 to 30, we're still quite unconfident.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
still not secure about ourselves. We're still not sure about things. We're still learning things. We're insecure about our bodies, and we're still, when you hit your 40s, you've learnt so much, you've
mm.
experienced so much. Then people say that's when you really, really feel like you're at your peak from, 40s on.
Yeah. You hear females saying
So,
that a lot because
so
they,
people that say to me, they think I still look young, I think what it comes down to is like, because I'm nearly 60 now, that I never took life too serious. There was times I did,
yeah,
when you go through, everyone goes through a hard time when we go through, being upset and moody and whatever. But most of the time, I like staying quite lighthearted about
yeah,
things.
yeah, having fun,
And
laughing.
I think that enhances your life of being happy and being, and like I was saying, you hit that age of 50 and you start feeling more confident with yourself. You know yourself, you go forward with things with a bit more intelligence and knowledge and confidence within yourself of that.
That's as long as you don't have people around you tearing you down
Oh,
the whole
definitely
time, like a
not.
bad relationship,
Yeah, that's
or
why you
like,
don't do bad relationships. Don't
yeah,
ever do a bad relationship.
yeah, or like, or for example, you might be trying to get to your best in your 40s and 50s, but if you've got health issues and you can barely walk up a hill or whatever, you're always going to look at someone like you're going to look at your 20-year-old self and say, oh, look at what I used to
And
look
then you're
like.
trapped. Your
Yeah.
mind is trapped in, like I was saying before, in this body that will not do what you want it to do.
Yeah.
And that mentally, as soon as you feel overweight, like the sugar and all the, bad carbohydrates, they make you moody and depressed and down. And it's proven now, like it was, oh God, how many? I think that's over 20 years now. Sugar is as addictive as
Cocaine.
cocaine.
Yeah, yeah.
So when it comes down to it, you're still going to crash the same too. And so when people are going through that and they want to keep feeding that, and then their body gets obese, and then they're not moving around, their mind starts going with that, which is sad to see.
It is sad. I'm 2 months pregnant. Could you please help me with what exercises I should and shouldn't do? Now, I'll start by saying that
Yeah,
this is very personalized,
yeah.
but let's instead talk about like, did you exercise when you were pregnant, and
Oh God, yes.
what
I
worked for
was
you? Because you can give your personal opinion.
I was still on a surfboard, 3-month belly. Not that I was a big surfer
Funny we
or
have 4
anything.
surfboards right here,
Not that I was a big surfer. They nicknamed me
but you
Whitewash Warrior because I would wait for the whitewash and ride in. So what they say.
no. What did you do for
So
your
I
exercise?
was
Yeah,
still back then. I was still running. I was surfing. And I was an aerobics instructor still
yeah.
till I couldn't.
You
And
weren't
back
doing
then
like
I was
weights
mass.
yet.
I did a little bit, but not really. And back then I was still massaging
So let's on because
as
this is
a
good to get back into
for
the
a
timeline
chiropractor.
because this opens up the timeline. So how old were you when you got pregnant with Shmaila?
Just before my 25th birthday.
Okay. Oh, I thought it was younger than that. The 25th is like an average age back then, or maybe even a little bit older. I don't know. People had
Mm.
a lot of kids younger. So you're 25. You're aerobics instructor, which is like these days people what it is these days is you're a group fitness instructor. People
Yeah.
call it differently, but back then it was wearing the one piece and
Yes.
with the
All the
fluffy socks.
trendy. No, not cool. A bit past that
Oh,
by
okay.
then, but still the one piece.
Which is pretty
And
revealing to be wearing at every aerobics class.
this was the era, too, the start of the era where we were taught no fats.
And oh yeah, yeah, no fat food. Yeah,
And that I didn't find out till 20 years later when the new
fuck.
research came out, how detrimental that was to my hormones and my
Yeah,
mental health and brain health. Like our our brain is like what they're saying, like 70 to 80% good fats. Let's get that
yeah.
right, good fats when we're saying that. So we need those good fats. So I went through that era of the Heart Foundation where they first did that research that the Heart Foundation, it's got to be
It's all
low fat.
propaganda.
So I was
Yeah.
having no fats. I was
You were
having
trusting the system
yoga, there's still carbohydrates and things like that, but it was okay to walk around with, eating lollies and things like
because there
that.
were sugars. Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, but not have those good fats. So
So what exercises did you do while you were pregnant? Like you were doing group fitness training,
yep.
like
I
aerobics.
was doing running for a fair while, and then I was doing walking when I got quite big. I was constantly walking, like because my craving, believe it or not, with Shmaila was the best chicken salad sandwiches. So I used to walk because we were living in Coolum then on the coast here. I used to walk from our little house at the Coolum Mountain down to Majimba and buy a chicken salad sandwich virtually every day or every second day. So I was still walking a lot, going down the beach because I still had a dog. I had the German Shepherd back then. And like I said, I massaged. I was working for a chiropractor
Oh, massaging
massaging.
is like so intense.
I used to
Like
have to stand on a box to get my belly above the
massage
table
table
to massage. So I was doing a really,
all the way up until like a few weeks before you had.
no, not a few weeks. I worked up until I was about 9, 10 months pregnant.
What is that in weeks? Everyone talks weeks these days. I don't
Yeah,
know, whatever
I
that
do
is.
months.
Like how many weeks before until you had?
Oh, so 9 months, so 9, 10 months. God. Up until I was nearly 9 months.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it was only weeks when I stopped because I remember getting my big belly and couldn't get past the
Yeah.
belly.
So you didn't stop doing. You kept doing everything you were doing beforehand.
So to answer that question, what the
Yeah.
girl or lady is asking, so what they always say, the exercises that you're doing or the movement that you're doing, and that comes down to horse riding because I ended up riding a horse in my early stages of being pregnant with Shamala, and I didn't know that I was pregnant with her, and I hadn't been riding in a long time, so I did a bit of a risky thing there, but I didn't
You
know
didn't
I was
know. Yeah,
pregnant.
yeah.
But they say whatever exercise that you're doing before you're pregnant, keep doing that till as long as you can. That's
Unless
safe.
it
That
gives you
is.
discomfort,
So
like
you
chronic
can
discomfort.
easy do weights. You can easily do everything. If you're doing all that before you're pregnant, you just keep doing that.
Yeah, yeah,
They say don't go and make big changes when
yeah,
you go
yeah.
and find out you're pregnant, because that's the things that cause the danger.
All right. Hi, Jackson's mum. Firstly, you are gorgeous. Do you have a skincare routine? I really like this question because I think you have like so much more of a natural approach when it comes to like you spent so much time when you were younger in the sun,
Did a lot of
surfing.
sun damage.
But what I mean by that is like people might just think because every girl thinks that they go in the sun and they're going to just age and they're going to wrinkle. Yes, but also some sun is good for the skin.
Yeah, but not. I was pretty
Yeah,
bad.
but
I went through my
you had a fun
things.
life. You know what I
Well,
mean?
well, just out in the surf, like trying to learn how to surf. I think I got to work, and every Tuesday my face would peel off from getting too much
Mm.
sun.
I do. I
So
go
I
through
did a
that
lot
right
of
now.
damage. I didn't do any kind of routines. I didn't even use bloody moisturizer, even 25, 26. I never. And then it was later that I
Was
found out
that?
women were doing that
But
kind of
like a
thing.
lot of because you're growing up on the Sunshine Coast, not growing up because you were in your early 20s on the Sunshine Coast. A lot of people around here were like Byron Bay vibe. Like people really weren't really wearing makeup that much. People weren't.
No, we're all natural.
Was
I
that
wasn't even using sunblock.
early? That was late 80s, early 90s. Yeah, late
Yeah, well,
early 90s.
because Schmala's 1990 born, so that
I'm
would have been
92. Yeah.
89. And we weren't using sunblock. There was still people that were still doing the coconut oil and roasting
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
I didn't do that. I wasn't one for doing all the fidgety things. It was
Mm.
like, move, go do stuff more.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't until I got older that I got told I was supposed to be doing, skin routines.
Yeah.
And even now, I don't. People do the cleanse and the tone, and I don't. I don't do
I
all
think
that.
the I think a big part of
It's got to be functional,
yeah,
quick, fast.
I think the big part of you having, quite good skin for your age is like rainwater in your shower at home for most of your life, like living on the farm.
Yeah, because I must admit, going to a pool just to get out of the pool and having that chlorine
Yeah.
smell, just I couldn't handle the smell.
Mm.
And I think that's part of that ADD. We're very
Sensitive to the
sensitive to smells and scents and things. And I would itch from the
dry skin.
chlorine. So I was lucky enough that I didn't have to do pools, and and I was never. I'm short. I was never a swimmer.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
why I was a whitewash warrior.
yeah.
Um, so I didn't do pools, and so I didn't do the chlorine and all
And
that
then
kind
just
of stuff.
healthy food so good for skin. Like
Yeah,
you've eaten pretty good.
yeah, good healthy lifestyle,
Yeah.
and always being active, doing something. So I went through bursts of different sports from when I was young, right up until older years, and even now still teaching Zumba.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're still moving and doing things. This is similar to a question before, but we can go into this a little bit more because I think people obviously following me and seeing a lot of my content and how I am now, and I'm, like 32 and like I got my life sorted out. But what was it like to bring up Jackson on your own, and was he mischievous or a good boy or both as a child?
He was a shit of a child.
Yeah, yeah.
No, well, you've got to put it together. Like
I had a lot of
you were,
energy.
well, you were not a medicated ADD
Mm,
child. So what I would say to you is lap you around the house. If you remember that, go
yeah, yeah.
go, and we'll see if you can do quicker. That was anything to burn out energy. Because if he spent time on those games, which came that era,
Game Boys and
Grand
stuff.
Theft
Yeah,
Auto,
Grand Theft Auto, Game Boys, all that.
um, he would go into rage that was out of control, like because you had all that energy
Mm,
that wasn't being expelled by just a game, the brain was, but the body wasn't
mm.
moving around. So you had to constantly keep moving. And then, like, it was later that you went into boxing,
Soccer,
soccer.
soccer was a big thing.
We got your boxing bag, and you'd take it out. So, I mean, in general, you're a good child still. Give the teachers so much shit. They were
Yeah,
always
yeah.
wrong, and you would prove them wrong, um, because you had a very active mind. But in general, because we kept you moving,
Mm.
it was about just keep moving.
Yeah,
If you
yeah.
keep moving, and that's what I'm finding now. Like it's great to keep moving, but you get older and you burn yourself out. So
Yeah.
it's now I'm trying to find out how I can move, what I can still keep moving. But like with you, it was always if you moved and you did like something that pretty well exhausted you, you were great. You
Mm.
would go and we did not everything was just awesome as long as you burnt out that energy out of yourself.
Just like a puppy dog.
Yeah,
Like if you don't take your dog for a walk, it'll chew the fucking carpet up and chew the
that's
fucking
right. And you
chairs up
can't
and
train a dog while it's got all that energy. So you
yeah,
let it have a play, do a little bit of
yeah.
training with it, and like
So like when I
I'm not
was
saying a
in,
child is a puppy dog,
but
but
it's
a
similar,
child with
you know.
heaps of energy, you've got to let them use that energy, and then you will have a child that will be able to listen. They can't listen when their body's wanting to
I
move.
remember I did whenever I was like struggling in like primary school and high school, I would do extra like PE classes. They somehow would be like, well, when you look at his report cards, like anything of my classes that were like my PE classes, my physical education, anything creative, like even woodwork and stuff, they're like, he was like, okay, but anything where I was doing sports, like top of the class,
Excelled.
like class leading captain, like
Mind
sports
you, you did
captain.
advanced mathematics
Yeah.
when you were young,
I
and you
remember
loved it.
it was cool to be smart in mathematics. And you know what? I didn't even really have to, I don't remember even studying at
No,
all. Like I was just
no.
really good at mathematics. I remember tutoring people in other classes. I'd go in and tutor people in other classes, but the problem is, got to high school and it wasn't cool to be smart. So I just stopped completely going to like any classes, and I was like wagging school and smoking weed and getting in fights. And it's just as you do when you're a
And
teenager,
setting the paddock down from the school on
burning the
fire.
back of the school down. Yeah, I got in a lot of trouble for that.
But that's once again not being able to let out the energy, and then you
Mm,
just get up to mischief. And look, and this is the thing: if you understand an ADD child, is they need to burn off energy, they need to move. And when they walk into a room, it's like I still say now, I'm still just learning because I've only just found out that I've had, even though friends of mine went, no shit, Mylinda, you've got ADD.
could have told you when I
We
was
could have told you
15.
that 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But now I've just probably been diagnosed, if you need that. But when it comes down to it, we walk into a room and we will see everything in the room straight up
Mm,
within seconds, so we get overstimulated very
mm,
easily. So now I understand, now if I go into a lot of noise and lots of stuff going on, that I'll get overwhelmed quite
mm,
easily. So once you understand a child, like if I would have understood this about when raising you, that would have been of more benefit. But then at least understanding that you needed to move around and you had this really active mind. So it was constantly mum, 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 mum,
and I'd
mum,
ask you questions about everything.
everything, you and Shamila,
I
because
wanted to
Shamila is
know,
a different kind of ADD,
yeah.
that's his sister. So it was mum, 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 mum,
And
like
we're also power fighting for your attention.
attention constantly.
Um,
But it was because, I always say, and this is what I say to people now that bring children in with ADD, I go, you've got a kid with a super brain.
yeah.
And that's really how you need to treat it. They will take in everything. You're like, and I don't mean like this, well, what do they call it? And there's words now for the type of different brains.
Neurodivergent.
Yeah, and,
You gotta be
and
careful. Like you gotta be,
divergent.
yeah, divergent and
But when it comes down,
neurotypical.
yeah, the neurotypical, they'll walk in and they'll, perceive things from their upbringing, from their program. If it be books in the room, they'll pick up that and they take in things quite slowly, and they're able to have a conversation.
It's like slow calculations.
And they can have a conversation if there's a noise in the background. People like you and I,
Like when I got the dogs to fuck off out of here
that's
before,
right. You lose,
I was
yeah,
like,
you
I
lose
can't
because
concentrate.
you can't do it because our brain is taking all that in, so we get overstimulated. So, for you growing up through all that, like we went through times where you were really naughty, and then the big change was realizing that the food colorings were the
Yeah.
trigger. Do you remember
Yeah.
you went down to Kara's place down the road and you hadn't had any? We'd totally stripped out all the reds and the blues and the oranges and the yellow
Explain to
food
people.
colouring.
People might not know what you're talking about. So food coloring is like the 302s, the two. It's these number symbols that are on the back of the
Yeah,
packet, and they create the artificial colorings
that's right.
in like lollies and soft drinks and Powerades
And
and.
now I've learnt too, MSG is a
Mm,
huge trigger because MSG, like monosodium glutamate in the brain, in some people, and then now we're getting into genetic stuff, and we're learning that about genetic, we don't have the capability of breaking down the glutamate into
glutamine, yeah.
into a glutamine. Now, when it comes down to it, glutamate can be converted. N-acetylcysteine will do that. I found out not so long ago. Could convert that into a powerful detoxifier, but glutamate in the brain, just flying
Toxic
around,
as
it's
yeah.
really toxic. So you see these kids with ADD and they're just off tap on food colorings, sugar, MSG. So when it comes down to it, so we cancelled all those colors out of the diet for a long time. And so Jackson didn't have any of those. He went down the road to a friend's, like down the farm, down the road to their party. And he came home early, and I thought that was very strange for you. So I was like, that's not. Came in, flew into his room, which was very strange too. And he was quiet, which was even more strange because in the kitchen, I was like, how come you're home? I don't feel well. And he ran into your room. And I was like, you all right? No. And then I thought he's really, really quiet. So I went and checked on you. And I'm not saying your eyes were rolling in the back of your head, extreme,
But I wasn't
but
well.
you were sweating
It's because of all the
profusely
sugars and the colors
and
and
your
shit.
eyes were flicking back a little bit. And I was like, it terrified me. And I said, what did you have? And you said, I had those orange balls, which, like back in those days, were Cheetos
Oh, Cheetos, which is all the
full
MSG.
of, and then lollies and stuff like that. And I swear to this day, you have not touched a
I
Cheeto
can't. I hate
again.
Cheetos.
Yeah, because of that memory.
Same with when we'd go up to we'd go right to the top of this crazy mountain in Kilkevin, full drive. There was no electricity. We had to run electricity through like a generator. And it was just our friends that own this place. It's like full off the fucking grid. And
We'd have Easter up there every
we'd go
year.
up there for
Easter
Easter,
every
and
year.
we were like little kids, so we wanted the chocolates, and the parents would have drinks and have fun, and the kids would all hang out. It was like the most awesome thing. But on Easter morning, we'd wake up, and the parents, while we were asleep, would make the little Easter footprints with
The powder
with a little bit of powder, and then
and doing this.
they'd fully put work into it, and then we'd run around and find, and they'd give heaps of chocolate eggs, and I smashed like you know 10 little eggs, 4 or 5 big eggs, and then bang, I'm vomiting.
Mm.
Ever since then, I can't really eat too much chocolate
No,
because I'm like,
you
my
you
body
did
just
not
rejected all the
touch
bullshit.
chocolate for years, yeah. So it just goes to show you that once your body knew what it felt like without that, and I've seen a 3-year-old child do this in clinic, come in, the child's just running crazy and screaming, and the mum's like out of her brain going, I don't know what to do. And I said, take off all food colorings, all
Mm,
preservatives. And I'm not too crazy on
artificial.
the gluten, no gluten. I mean, there is a time and a place for that in some children and some people in general. But I said, take her off all those and the sugars for starters.
And these little kids are drinking
She
like
came
mothers and
in,
Red Bulls these days.
3-year-old came back a week later, and the child was sitting in her lap. I'll never forget it. And when she left, she said, thank you for giving my daughter back. And
Yeah.
she had like, I'll never forget the emotion from the parent of a totally different character child. Like you would almost not recognize the
Yeah.
child. She actually was sitting there in her mum's lap,
And I
where
think
she
that's
was tearing the room apart, screaming like
a
some
lot
nut.
of a lot of parents think their kid has a problem, like they want to, everyone's diagnosed, but like the
Yeah,
ADHD
and it's gone a bit too
ADHD
crazy.
percentages increased so much because if you Google the things to have ADHD, it could be just someone who has a troubled day and not eating correctly or whatever. But then you got people that really lean in and be like, okay, my kid's definitely got it because easily distracted, naughty. It's like, well, does the kid have a hobby? Does he do sport or he or she do sport? How are you feeding them? Are you eating like this? And then you're giving them roll ups and poppers and shit. It's like juices to go to school in. It's like,
And then any normal child, you give that much sugar and they're going to have a full meltdown. Like you see them, where they crash.
goes up, and then it goes
And then you
down.
see like, because they don't have a way of finding the words to express how
They
they're
express it
feeling,
physically.
they'll do the anger and the
What do you
crying
call
and
it?
the
Spack attacks.
screaming. Yeah,
The
spack
spack
attacks.
attacks.
Yeah. So, any child's going to do that on that kind of food anyway. So it's, that's why they're now doing proper diagnostics with this. But we are getting to that point too. And this is only, I think it was only 6 months ago that I learnt that the ADD or ADHD genetic runs more in the female and the mother into the children. So now we're getting more genetically where we're kind of passing it on to our children.
Yeah, yeah.
So you probably got it from your mum.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's not probably. Fucking hell. I know for sure. And I love it how you tried to like not think that you had it while both your kids are full.
But even I never got you guys diagnosed either because I didn't want to medicate you. So we
Well, that's the
changed
thing.
diet
Yeah.
extreme. We did a big, huge extreme in change in food, and you did change
Yeah, yeah.
immensely. Like to the point where you could have a rational conversation with you and you would listen.
Yeah.
Whereas before that, on Red
And
Frog,
I think some young I
crazy.
think some young boys are getting diagnosed with it and put on medication when they don't actually even have it. They're just young teenage toddlers. Like they just got high energy
And
and they're getting
children have to
suppressed
run.
and getting drugged out. And these numb kids, and they're all putting on a lot of the medication makes you like put on weight and your stomach's all fucked. And then
Well, then you got the other side of it. I've seen in clinic, a lot of children that are actually starting to get what we're calling subclinical malnutrition, whereas they don't get hungry
yeah, from the
because
medication, yeah,
it's based on a
Ritalin, yeah,
methamphetamine. So they're not hungry all day. So they're getting really, really, really skinny. And the parents are like, what do I do? They're naughty if I don't give them the medication to go to school, and they're not going good with their grades, which is factual. So this is the part where they can't concentrate in the classroom because they've got all this noise, like I was saying
distraction,
before.
yeah,
They can't focus on the one thing because
too
all
much
of this is
stimulation,
calming out
yeah,
there and too much stimulation. So the medication does have its place, but the other side of it is that they're not hungry. So then they go to school and they don't eat all day.
yeah,
So you've got different extremes. So where you're talking about where some children get a little bit obese and things like that is we've gone through the era of antibiotic abuse. There is a time and a place for antibiotics. I'm not against them. But when there was abuse, like babies from very young, and you start seeing that swollen stomach and they're
people just throwing
really
antibiotics
pale,
onto anything. Oh, your kid's
and
a little
they
bit sick.
then, because they're bombing out all their good probiotics and the good bacterias and the bad bacterias, and they're doing their job, but they're bombing out all the good ones. Then within another couple of months, they go to preschool, then they get sick again, and then they keep going on this spool for years of antibiotics. So that's causing gut damage now, we're finding, and then we've got to do another kind of malnourishment.
Yeah, when really like one of the one of the best advice I can have is like do it the hard way to start with. Like focus on nutrition, focus on sleep. Like if your kid's playing video games really late at night, it's like put your big boy parent pants on, like for parents, and be like, discipline your kids because they actually crave discipline, just like your dog craves being, trained properly, and obviously not being like
We
crazy
all need
disciplined.
limits.
Yeah,
We
and
all need to know limits. It's like laws, like rules around the house and all that kind of thing. So a child, when you say discipline, it's having set rules, set times that you sit down and you all eat like you were saying
yeah,
before.
yeah,
Don't eat separately, differently. Don't have protein shakes and expect your child's going to eat a piece of broccoli
yeah,
because
yeah,
they've not watched you do that. So they need to eat these meals. You need to sit down and eat a meal with them
yeah,
and they will sit down too. But if you're not sitting down, your child's going to get up and down
yeah,
from the
yeah.
table and throw the food around all over the place and not be interested in real food either.
Here's a good question. How was your training? How has your training changed with age, and what can a 37-year-old do to prep for it? So, like, how was your training? Because let's get that timeline. After doing aerobics, and when I was like 5, 6, 7, 8, I don't know, young, you actually competed in like a bodybuilding competition.
Yeah.
So you were doing proper weights then.
Yep.
So you literally taught me under the house when I was 13, 14 years old how to bench press with barbell, how to do, and then you said to me, all I was doing was arms and chest. And I started going to the gym with my mates, and you're like, your back's underdeveloped, your legs are underdeveloped, and you're like calling me out saying you need to train all your body parts stuff. I'm like, oh, but all I care about is like
Yeah.
biceps and abs
What I just have biceps and what
and chest
about
and abs or
chest?
whatever. So like for you, you're very experienced. I've learned a lot from you. I remember we coached the football team, the local football team, and at like 15, 16, I was helping them with technique because I'd learnt from you, and they were listening to you, just like little old lady and these big footy players, but they had shit technique because training takes
Well,
time and
once
energy.
again, they back then too, they were building, they wanted the big upper body. But then when you go in there, and I used to say to him, like, you're going to have an injury
Mm,
in football, you're going to tear something, you're going to hurt something because your body is out of balance.
yeah,
If your quads are overdeveloped and your hamstrings are
you're
undeveloped, you are
tearing.
going to tear a
Yeah, yeah.
hamstring. And that's
I
six
did that.
weeks out of
Yeah,
footy.
yeah.
That's the season.
So how had your training changed from bodybuilding training? Because how old were you?
So I did bodybuilding after I had years two. So you were quite young. Oh God, I've got to try and remember now. Well, you were still in a pram when I
Yeah,
was training at the gym.
yeah.
Because when I was doing the aerobics classes, used to say, oh, I want to go to the toilet all the time because the toilet was downstairs where I used to do
Yeah, yeah.
classes. So you could see mum.
At the window while you're doing aerobics.
Yeah. So how it's changed over the years is I went through my era when I was living in Sydney through like from when I was 19 was high aerobics,
Skinny,
yeah,
yeah.
and jogging 5Ks and getting shin splints and all
Mm,
that kind of stuff. And then I went through having you two, and then I got into weights, and like I think I walked into the gym after having used to, and I was only like 40, I think I was 47 kilos. And I remember the lady from the gym that was doing world title levels, and I just thought she was just the
yeah.
greatest. And saying to her, I want to do what you do. And she said, oh, it's going to take you years because I was this little skinny,
Mm.
scrawny thing. And I was like determined
Yeah,
as
you're
we do.
stubborn.
Yeah, I was.
You can call it
And
determined or you can call it stubborn.
yeah, but as soon as someone says you can't do something, I'm
Yeah.
going to do it. Back in my day. So in 9 months, I competed in figure.
9 months of
In
training.
nine
And there's
months, I
actually
competed in
photos.
figure.
There's actually photos that mum has at home. And I love getting like taking a photo of them on I'll put it on my Instagram story of mum with this like world class back, like better backs than most chicks I see who train seriously and they're doing like 25 exercises for backs and all these fancy equipment. And I'm like,
And all through competing. Whereas some of the girls that I saw go through their training, and like even the girl that trained me, they were having the egg whites, and I was still having
whole
whole
legs, yeah,
eggs,
yeah.
chicken, real food. I always wanted to have my real food because I didn't want to get to that point where it doesn't look
Yeah, with the
nice.
faces all drawn in and everything.
When I
Some
went and
girls,
did competed, so I did under 52 state title
kg, under
bottle.
52 kg, not
Yeah,
age. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
under 52 kg weight division of bodybuilding. Went from the 9 months figure, um, and it might, we kind of say genetically we had a little bit, I think through being fit when I was really, really
Mm,
young. I grew up on a farm, so I was chopping wood
mm,
and riding horses.
yeah.
So that's really upper body, a lot of
And
upper
legs
body
too.
work.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I was always sporty, did hockey and then touch footy later. So I was lucky I had the muscle memory there when I walked in
Mm.
the gym, and she didn't
Also,
know
people,
that.
this is really underestimated or underrated is you also had the fitness to actually push more reps
Yeah.
to get the muscle conditioning or the muscle size. People always forget this because I did boxing first and then I went to weights. And when I ended up competing when I was 23, 24 or whatever, people would always ask me, what do you do for shoulders? Your shoulders are like world class. You have the best shoulders. And I was like, well, I did boxing for years. So they built the condition. So when I started training
That's where that
shoulders,
muscle
they
memory
were really
comes in.
strong and I could do way more reps than everyone else. And obviously genetics comes into that as well. But I think it's important. You came in not unfit. You came in cardio fit, but you needed to build muscle, so you focused. And what
And
was that
it's
training like? Did you, back then was like, did you do high reps? Was it like Arnold Schwarzenegger
yeah,
encyclopedia
yeah,
style,
yeah.
like
It was very much Arnie, like
traditional,
just go heavy and go
like
hard.
pump?
Yeah, do the big pump.
Like what were your reps and sets like? Like what were you aiming for? Like high reps? How many
No,
sets?
no. I used to do minimal reps because I was lean, first of
You
all.
wanted to
I
build the
wanted to build
yeah
muscle. And the funniest thing is, then I got categorized in my category for figure as too muscular.
yeah
So I
same.
went straight into doing the under 52. And then I took out the Sunshine Coast title within another, I think it was only another 6 months after that. Took out the Sunshine title to get to the Gold Coast. But then because I didn't compete in the natural bodybuilding
Those girls that
competitions,
had facial hair and shit
and that
there,
freaked me out when I went to the Gold
and they
Coast in the
looked
middle
real
of the
like
shopping
geared
centre.
up
We had to do like a weigh-in in the middle of the Gold Coast shopping centre. And she had full
and
chin
a
growth.
deep voice and shit.
And I was like, and she
Was
was
it
over.
IFBB? What federation was
Yes,
it?
it was. And she weighed over,
The
and we
weight.
were only, I think it was only like a week before we were to compete. And I was like, she looks like a guy. And I'll never forget my foster mum when I competed at the Gold Coast. And she said to me, "Oh, Lenny, don't you go looking like a boy like
Yeah.
they've got like they look like they've got
There's no
things
boobs
down
and the muscles are
below."
coming up through the
Oh,
chest
well,
and
and the long chin and the more growth
forehead. Yeah, from the
and
testosterone
elongated in the bone area
and
down
the
and
clitoris.
well, I don't know about the clitoris, but just in
The pubic
general,
bone area is like
it
developed.
looked bigger. So
Yeah.
I like once I had done that, I was like, I'm done.
Yeah, you're
I
like
didn't want. I came in third, but that was it for me. I was like, this is
probably first
unhealthy.
in the natural people.
It's unhealthy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah. So
So that training was
so
like low
over the
reps.
years, I went from a lot of jogging and aerobics to weights, and now, so when you start hitting your 30s, well, close to when I think that the lady said she was 37.
Yeah, 37-year-old.
So when you start getting into 40s, really important to do that weight bearing exercise. In other words, weights or something weight bearing, because that's going to stop that osteoporosis and put that really good strong bone density. Whereas I'm meeting women my age and they're all hitting, getting
Menopause or whatever it's called.
yeah, and they're getting really bad bone density
Brittle, yeah, yeah.
reports back, whereas so far mine's been really strong. I think I've only broken one bone in my body
So
ever.
you're 59 years old, because I know what you do because I talked to you about it. You do Zumba, you run like a Zumba class,
Yeah.
and that's just like fun, bit of aerobics vibe to it.
Oh, but
Full
I
cardio,
get them
like
to work
you
hard.
get going. Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah,
No,
yeah, I
I
work
agree.
them.
Been trying to get me to
Still in
go
the where was it the other morning? It was still only 7 degrees. We're out in the open because we do it down at the
outside, yeah.
field at the stage, and I was sweating within 20 minutes.
Fuck, yeah.
So we don't I well, like we always did go hard fairly well.
So you got the Zumba, you do a Zumba once a week. Then you got all the farm work, all the
Yeah.
mowing. Like we don't even go into that. You've got like your step count. You don't need to go for walks. You're
No,
literally
and then I'm
farm work,
chopping wood because I have a little outdoor
chopping wood,
fire and
going in the garden every morning and
yeah,
afternoon,
and walking the
watering.
dog in the afternoon.
Yeah,
Um, and then I do weights twice a week.
yeah, yeah.
And I do
Proper
as
weights.
heavy as I
Yeah,
can, but with form, because you've taught me even more so. Like,
yeah,
even though I taught you back,
yeah. It's
and
coming
then as
around. Yeah,
it's come around, now you teach me better form.
because I think the
Because there
science and
is importance in form for not injuring yourself when you get to this age, especially so. So anyone that goes into the gym without someone showing them good form and doing the exercise properly with the weights, starting
yeah,
low
yeah.
weights, you're going to do yourself damage. And at this age, when you do a like any kind of injury, you're out for 6 months sometimes, some, a bit
They
earlier.
say on average, if someone over 50s does a hip, it puts a massive increase in their speed of death rate after that. Basically, like
Oh, yeah.
doing a lower body injury like a hip or a knee or ankle, basically you're then 1 or 2 steps away from dying earlier because most people never recover from that
Yeah.
because they're not doing weights, they don't have the bone density, and because the weight
And
goes on and it's hard to get back into it.
then you've got those muscle ligaments and tendons tight, and
Yeah.
then when you do good form,
Yeah,
that's the
exactly. Yeah.
the thing about
It
good
strengthens them.
proper exercise.
Yeah. And obviously eating good and stuff. Let's go to another question.
Yep.
As a single mum myself, it's hard to think about my health first. How do you balance it?
Once again, it's about preparing your meals for you and your children
Mm,
all in one.
yeah.
So meat and veggies of some kind, or meat and salad, and you can still have small desserts, but sit down then and eat as a family.
Mm.
So
What about training? Like, what about like? So they might obviously
uh,
their nutrition is so that covers nutrition. Like telling them just put the energy and make your kids eat healthy. They're not going to like it. Like how many times at the table where we say we're not going to eat something and you're like, well, guess what? That's what you're going to get.
well, what you grew up with, my mum was always saying, well, you don't get dessert.
Yeah, exactly. So you like
So
you
we
have
grew
to.
up still having dessert, but I preferably did the custard, egg custards with proper whole
Yeah,
eggs, and I like good food. So if it comes down to having time for yourself, it's teaching your children that it's like you teach your children to have respect for you. It's like,
yeah,
I know a lot of women, and I had it too. There was no way I could go to the toilet without used to being at the door, and I just didn't bother in the end
mm.
because you don't get privacy. And I
Mum,
get
mum,
that,
mum, all the
mum,
time.
mum,
Yeah,
mum. But you have to teach your children the respect of your time for you and your quality time by doing that exercise for yourself. I should be looking at that. By doing exercise for yourself and teaching your children that you need that time, it gives them, it teaches them to have respect. But not only that, then you become a better mum because
yeah,
you feel better about yourself. By as soon as we exercise, we get the endorphins, we feel good, you
yeah,
start feeling that little bit trimmer or a bit firmer or better in your clothing or whatever you know what you put as a value for that. So it's about teaching them if you're doing a home workout that you're doing, and like have little sets for them, like a little light thing that they can play with. If they're real toddlers, have something like, even for my dog at my friend's place, she's got like a little weight zen when I go to my girlfriend's place,
yeah.
and she knows that that's her little
It's her
toy,
little toy
but
while
she's
you hang
got
out.
weights, my
Yeah,
girlfriend.
yeah.
So Zen was picking up her
Oh, true.
weights.
Yeah, yeah.
But so it's about the same with children. Have a little toy thing that's
A lot of
like
these
they
mums,
can
a lot of
exercise
these
as
mums are
well.
gonna say they're gonna be thinking in their head right now, I don't have time. I'm so busy. But then they spend like at least 2, 3 hours a day either scrolling on social media because the reason why I know is because they watch my videos. They must be on social media, and also then they're watching some like dramery TV shows and stuff, which is nothing wrong with that. We all love watching our series, but my tip is make time. You make time. You're never going to have time. If you try to just wait till you're free, it's never going to happen. You have to say to your husband, or if you are a single parent, say to someone in your friend or your family, or there's gyms that have creches.
Yeah, well, there's
Perfect.
plenty of
Like put
women that take their kids to
kids in
the
the creche,
yeah,
it's just one
creche.
hour. Your kids are
Yep,
going to get used to it. Or train at home and your kids will watch you training and then they will probably be more likely. For me, like I grew up watching you in the gym,
yep. From when you're in a pram, I
literally.
would take you and Shamala, and being a single mum with two littlies, only 13 months apart, that was my sanity,
Yeah.
going to the gym. And even though they would find it, because I had extra energy children, that they would find excuses to come and see mum.
Yeah.
But when it come down to it, after a while, they knew that that was mum's time. That's
Yeah.
what mum did. And that is, it's about, first steps are always the hardest, like with making any change, like making a change to your diet, making a change in exercise, to whatever you do. It's always that, like we always say, the new is uncomfortable. And the same with children, teaching them this is your time, this is what you're going to do. We're going, getting ready to go to the gym. Plenty of times I was late, screaming at the kids, like when they go older, "We're getting in the car, we've got to go, and I've got to go to the gym," or of this and that.
Yeah.
But like you said, you grew up, and look where, well, look what
I've
you've
got a
done with
photo
yourself.
there's a photo of us after I came like top 3 or top 5 at one of my first big like national fitness competitions where like all the girls and guys on stage looked incredible. Like people were just there was like 40 or 50 competitors in each group, and I came like top 5 in my first legit national comp. There's a photo of me with all my tan on and you out the front, and I'm smiling. And I put that photo up a few years ago, and I put a photo on top of that photo of you when you were competing in bodybuilding, and there's me there as well.
And we competed at exactly the
The
same
same A.
place.
Oh yeah, the
The
same
same
spot. Yeah,
place
which is
where I
on the
did
New South
my
Wales and Queensland border.
was the Gold Coast,
Oh, the Gold
and
Coast. Yes.
that's where I did my so that was state title, and that's where you did your what competition was that? I can't even remember, but
One
yeah,
of them. Yeah.
but we both competed at the same place years later.
I got a good one for you here. Is where is it? I think we've spoke about this a little bit. Fitness and health industry differences and parallels between now and 35 years ago. One was like everyone was low fat and also
Oh
really
God,
high
yeah,
cardio.
yeah.
Um, Females weren't like females like these days. Girls, there's more girls in the weight section than guys these days. Like young girls.
But yeah, like oh, when I was 19, I remember somebody saying to me at the gym, going, "Oh, you should do weights." I'm not touching. I'm not going to get
I
big.
want to
I'm
get
not going to
bulky. I
get
don't want to
big.
get
I'm going to
bulky.
get because I was always short,
Mm.
and being such a sporty person, I did
Already
hold
have
muscle.
muscle. Yeah.
So I was like, no, 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 no. And then, yeah, that turned around. And now we know, like, we need those good fats. We need a good, stable, and weights is so healthy for us.
How did you go having 2 kids and having to work multiple jobs at the same time and still finding time for staying fit and healthy and being passionate about like your own stuff as well? Like, how did you juggle all those things?
All I can say is I just did it at the time.
Yeah.
You just, and I think that's a part of being a single parent, especially. So, and this goes the same with because you can look at people in relationships as well, and you're like they're both going to work, so they kind of become single in a lot of
Mm.
ways. That for you to be sane, this was for
Yeah,
me, it
yeah.
was sanity.
You just
In
got to have your
actual
own
fact,
time.
it was part of being sane. Moving around just made me feel better, and I then became a better mum. So once I realised doing that, that I was more stable within myself,
Mm.
then that became just a part of life. It's like back in, like anything that we do, like parents that, say, for example, a mum that does shift work, she's got to adjust her life
Yeah.
and the children have to adjust with that. And it's no different than adjusting with a change in diet, a change in exercise, if you're going to take on a form of a routine. And I think I deep down feel like it's really important for you to have respect for yourself,
Yeah, that comes first, eh?
your children. And because I went, I don't know how many people know that follow you, but I studied being a herbalist, and then I was finding people weren't listening to what I was saying and making changes in diet. So then I studied NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming. It's about changing that brain, and I did hypnotherapy with that, because your children will grow up. It's like we are changeable. We
Mm.
can change. So when it comes down to it, the more that we learn to change, the child will change with us.
Yeah. I think I spent a lot of time growing up that my brain would catch up with how good you were as a parent, even though I was like, I wish we had more money. I wish I could have a motorbike. I wish I could have this new skateboard. You know, when you're a teenager, you want. Oh, we don't have internet. I can't be on MSN and talk to girls. And like, I'm an outsider and I don't have cool brand name clothes and
You
we can't
wanted the
afford it.
Billabong
Yeah, Billabong
shorts.
shorts and the fucking,
And then it was later that you went, oh, but we always got good quality meat and vegetables. They were my main focus, was that we ate
all the extra
really
money you
well.
had left went into nutrition
Yep,
because that
good
is going to
food.
be clothes get moldy and fucking go old and they go,
Oh,
you
you run
grow
down
out
the
of it.
paddock and tear your ass on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
barbed wire fence.
You know what I mean? Or you grow out of it and styles change. Like every kid
Yeah,
wants this brand and then it goes. But when it
yeah.
comes to nutrition, the kid is growing, your children are going through these unique stages where if you don't give them the right nutrients and the building blocks, they're not going to develop into being good, strong, but also smart humans. And I mean, my genetics weren't great. I struggled with ADD at times, but what I
And you were a
found,
preemie baby.
yeah, exactly. Like I
So
was
Jackson
undersized.
came 6 weeks early. But isn't that funny too? Once again, I think that comes down with good genetics a little bit and being healthy because the boy that you grew up with, which was bloody nearly almost, Tom was nearly twice your height
Yeah, he crazy.
and crazy. We ended up in the hospital together, him and
Yeah.
his mother. He was over an 8-pound baby and ended up in a humi crib, which is, because he was jaundice. You were preemie and were right beside me, but you were
Mm.
this little tiny
Little
thing.
pink baby.
So you were still, you know, st- things weren't totally formed, like your reflux valve wasn't
Mm.
formed properly. There was, like gut bacterias
And
weren't formed
then
properly.
I had like chronic asthma. Real,
Yep.
I had to be sleeping on machines and stuff when I was
Yeah.
younger.
Yeah.
And then I end up winning nearly every cardio sports event, cross country, running. I'd come top three in nearly, I would just do every single sporting event with no
Well,
training.
you and Tom.
Yeah, me and Tom from,
Tom, like, he ended up as professional basketballer
he
because
was the
he's
captain for Australia basketball team.
so he was, God, he was tall. I don't even
Yeah.
know, but he was a lot taller than you. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember
And I was competing, I
even
was having to
running
run
when
around
you,
the cross
that's
country
right.
with him.
And you were always like a leg behind him
I was trying to keep up
virtually.
and I was dying doing that
Yeah.
because every one of his step was two of mine. But he'd always say to me, he's like, fucking hell, the pace. He's like, slow it down. Like, he knew he was, like, we knew he was going to win because that's what he competed in. He went for like nationals for it. But it'd be like, if I can keep up with him right until the end, and it
Determination.
pushed each other. We had a chat like a few years ago, and he's actually got into personal training now because he had an injury in basketball.
Basketball,
Just
yeah.
like any, you can't be the top of your sports in your 30s. It's a 20-year-old game. And he's doing personal training. I'm like, how cool is that? We all end up in the same industry. But
So yeah, so from you see, I don't know how many pictures you've put up from when you were real young, like
mm,
your soccer days. You were just little
tiny,
tiny,
skinny, yeah.
tiny little. So to where you've become and what you and I think whereas some people wouldn't understand this if they hadn't gone through it, but I went through malnutrition.
Yeah.
I had full blown. I'm not talking like just mild malnutrition. I went through the foster system. I had full blown malnutrition where my hair had fallen out and was just barely there, was half bald, and I had the big swollen belly, and
Like
I
you see
was
them in
very tight.
Ethiopia kind of
Yeah,
thing.
but I was a
Oh,
white person.
yeah, I know, but of course. Of course you were, yeah.
um, and I was this little tiny, skinny, scrawny, big jointed child. So I think that's where the importance of food for you,
Yeah,
both
yeah.
of you children, I always said, you just went to school with all the, it was always balanced, and I was really, there's the ADD part of the brain where you get a bit OCD, where we would have, beef one night, chicken another night, fish
That's
the
just
other
bodybuilder
night,
life now.
and then
Fitness
spaghetti
life.
bolognese another night. And I would constantly fluctuate our
Mm.
proteins and have a really,
Wide range of,
but it was set. We didn't have chicken 2 nights in a row, and we didn't
yeah.
have beef 2 nights in a row. So I think that came in with me a lot, whereas a lot of people more unlikely these days
Just
take
fucking
that for
packet
granted.
lasagna and shit. I got a
But see, this
question.
is where, sorry, I just got to finish
Yeah.
this. That subclinical malnutrition is coming in now, where you've got children that are getting obese, so they look like they're healthy. Well,
But
some of
they're
us,
high
they got
calories, low
weight on them,
nutrients.
but they're lacking in nutrients because of McDonald's. And I don't just pick on McDonald's, but you take away foods and packet foods and pies and chicken nuggets, and it's all processed and
Even the
full of.
packet food in the Coles and Woolworths, like everything
It's
down the aisles and shit.
nutritionally is dead.
Mm, mm.
So children look at a banana with a bruise these days and they go, oh, it's yucky. And so they sooner eat a potato chip, which has got no nutrition.
With
So
vegetable oils
we're
and shit.
now
Yeah.
really looking at these children that are starting to what they're calling subclinical malnutrition,
Yeah, it's called
where the
over calories, undernourished. Yeah.
and no nutrient value. Yeah,
Um,
sorry, so your question.
Last question, and then we'll wrap it up. This one's just from me, and I don't know if I've asked you this directly because this is like a different format. So there was times from bad grades at school because distracted or whatever, and then even when I got most of that sorted, there was times between like 16 and 18 where I was like possibly could be going to jail from doing bad shit,
Yeah,
selling drugs, getting in fights. I was in like a gang, like you know wasn't as crazy as it might sound, but I was in a. You were thinking. You said to me, you had this conversation with me where it's like if you don't straighten out and start, focusing on career and getting away from these people you're hanging out with, you're going to end up in jail. My question
my
is,
words were,
yeah,
I had to come and get you from the police station, which I just promised the police a week before that you won't be back there.
yeah,
2 o'clock in the morning, I got the phone call. This is the Gympie police. And that instant that a parent gets a phone call like that, there is seconds that your brain goes, they're going to tell you one of your children are dead.
yeah,
And then he goes, I've got your son here and he's got himself in some trouble. And it's like, oh, get in the car, fly into town, which is like 12 minutes to get into the police station, get your son, explain to him that he's going to stay out of trouble this time, get him in the car, and I'm yelling at him and then trying to calm, and I'm saying to him, I'm going to let you go to juvenile detention for boys home rather than jail, because the jail's going to love you as a little boy. You're a pretty boy,
mm,
they're going to love you. I'm
yeah,
going to
yeah,
let you go now. And I then got in the gate and I flew the door open and I actually threw up
yeah. You vomited, yeah,
from just that thought that one of my children, even thinking about it now gets me emotional, thinking that something had happened to one of my
yeah.
children,
That's the
but
worst
saying
fear
to
of any
you,
parent.
because I was always straight up, that as soon as you go into a boys' home, I'm going to let you do that. So you need to sort your shit out.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you did after that.
So let me finish my question.
Yes, sorry.
Just move the hair off the microphone. Push
Okay.
it back all the way. Yeah, yeah. So my question was, in that moment, you can just see that's like a pretty bad position to be in for a 17 age. And then even when I was 18, 19, getting in fights, coming home with hands bleeding and
Oh, we
gang
went to
fights and
hospital. You
stuff.
put your hand,
My
you had to
elbow
get
through a window.
stitches.
Yeah. So when you see how successful, and not just successful I have been in business, because that's all cool to make a lot of money, but becoming such a good person, like actually doing a job where I'm helping people, and then meeting such a beautiful woman that's become my wife, Alicia, and how,
She's family.
like, did you ever think, like, what's your thoughts of that transformation? Like, because there might be some parents that are in the red zone right now with their kids where they're doing bad stuff. I didn't get a good grade at school. I didn't.
You didn't even finish school
I went back
later, but at the
after,
time
but
you
at the time I
left at
left the
16.
electrical apprenticeship. But what was your thoughts at the time, and then how do you feel now? Like, how has the transformation been as a parent to see where I've come to and where I am now?
Words can't say how proud I am of you.
Oh,
Like, there is no words to watch what you've gone through. And I always knew you had the determination and the zest in you, and being my child
mm,
and Shamala too, you always had this big fight for life. But there is no word. I can't express in words. It's not just proud. I feel as a mother, it's not like what a great job I've done either. It's about seeing you as an adult and how far you've got for yourself is this overwhelming feeling of love and respect for you. It's not
yeah,
just
yeah.
oh um, proud of you. It's respect.
I
It's
think,
having that turnaround of growing a respect for you as an adult.
yeah, I think a lot of parents let their kids get away with a lot because they're your kids, but eventually when you're like over 22, 23, some parents go, like, my son or my daughter isn't really like a genuinely good person to other, people that are rude to waiters, like even if, and I'm talking people that are like successful and rich, but they're rude and they go through heaps of relationships and they've got addiction to like drugs or gambling or porn, whatever. Like, I think a parent's just like their true happiness is like seeing their child or their grandchild or whatever develop into a genuinely good person, not rich and successful, but like a genuinely good person that cares about people.
Because that's where it comes down, bringing them up real, being honest, and teaching them respect. And I think we had to have that, and I had to be strict with that respect for us to be able to survive between all of us.
Yeah, yeah.
The way we were with the ADD, just crazy, all go, everything fast and go, go, go. There had to be set rules. Well, as you know, how many camps did you miss out
The
on?
amount of school camps
3.
where I'd be like crying and crying because mum was like,
And,
if you
and
stuff up
that's one
again,
thing I do feel bad about, because
yeah,
I
but you know
didn't
what?
know, if I would have understood then how severe the ADD,
Yeah, yeah, you didn't
because
understand.
you would go right, you'd be good right till like maybe the day before,
And
and
then
then
I'd
you,
fuck up.
yeah, and it was, and now I realise, but mind you, that
That,
taught you
yeah,
consequences to your
I
actions,
agree. It's like
and you learnt from that. So,
if you gave in to me pleading after I did something where you said to me, you were really straight out, you're like, if you be bad again, you're not going to school camp, because it was the school sports camp. Like, I was the team leader, sports leader, and I knew that at that school camp, you hang out with chicks, you hang out with guys, you're around the fire, like it's full. It's like the coolest thing of the year.
yeah.
You're sleeping in bunk beds and there's
And
girls there,
nothing
and
else, you didn't care about anything else apart from your computer games, video games, and school camp.
yeah.
So to actually have you pull up, because you wouldn't listen to anything else, it was like school camp
And
was
honestly,
lost.
don't feel bad about that, because taking that away from me, even multiple times, made me realize that when someone in authority, parent, police officer, tax boss, tells you that if you don't, you know, do the right thing, you will get disciplined. It taught me that it actually is real,
There's
that you
consequences to an
will,
action. And I
yeah,
used to
yeah.
always say that to you guys too, right from very young. I used to say, an action has
Yeah,
consequences.
yeah. And I think a lot of kids these days, teenagers and even adults, I meet people all the time where I'm like, you are fucking the biggest airhead. They think that, don't worry because their parents are rich, or like they'll just get sent, like they don't think that they're ever going to actually have to work for it.
Consequences.
Yeah, yeah,
They're left too much. Well, and I do believe there's too many excuses for kids these days, like,
yeah.
oh, little Johnny or Jimmy or Susie's got this, so, and they're emotional and they don't want, and I do have respect for that, and like I treat
But
clients
they need
with
to learn
that.
discipline as well.
But that's
Yeah,
right, we still need rules and regulations. And I always say this to a client: can we go through the stop sign? No, we
yeah,
can't. We're going to kill somebody.
yeah, yeah.
So it's no different.
Doesn't matter how you're feeling that day. You got to obey the
Yeah, you
basic
still have to
laws.
stop at
Yeah,
the
yeah.
stop sign. Otherwise, you might run a child over. So if that child does not learn that there is consequences to an action, they're not going to have that respect for the law. And when we look, I had this conversation just the other day with an older gentleman, actually. So he's heading into his 80s, and he goes, I don't know what's happening now. Children aren't even scared of the police. And I
Yeah, they're
go,
so disrespectful. Yeah.
there's consequences. And there's no way that I believe in beating a child at all. But I do believe there has to have some sort of
Some discipline,
disciplinary
yeah.
action for when they do something wrong, however that may be.
Let the hounds in. Or you can open the door now. We'll wrap it up. Before we go and we let all the
I
dogs
think it's
in.
the dogs at the door, not
Oh, it's
Alicia.
Zena. Alicia, you can open the door now. Let the dogs in. Thank you so much for coming on the potty, Mum.
Thank you.
I love you lots. The dogs are here.
Little babies.
Yeah, thank you so
Hello,
much.
babies.
I hope you enjoyed it. It was pretty
Hello.
crazy. We're just doing it at home today. Come here. Up. Come here. Come here. Come here. It's the dog's walk time. So we've got to go.
We did it. We did it. We did it. Yes,
See
you're
you later.
making the money. See ya.